Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for an art house experimental film that's not Skinamarink, thank God. This is a 1981 film called Possession, starring Sam Neill from Jurassic Park. It's weird seeing this film, not seeing him with a beard. Very, very odd. Possession has a title, and it's hard to find a poster to put for the thumbnail that doesn't have nudity, or at least very limited nudity, so forgive me for that. A lot of art house type things, a lot of European movies have that issue for posters and stuff. Like Cannibal Holocaust is a great example. When I was going to review that back in the day, like a year ago, it was really hard for me to try to find a poster that didn't have nudity in it, because every single one had something like that or something really horrific. Anyway, here we are talking about Possession, which is apparently a very well-beloved movie in the horror community. I didn't know that. Never heard of this film until recently. My boy Jason and my girl Kaylee from their particular channel, Sinister Cinema Reviews, did a review on this recently. I don't think they had ever seen the film either. This film apparently has a couple of different versions, I believe, but not like official versions, just different releases. And apparently right now on Shudder they have the full-fledged, uncut, all the gore, all the effects there movie called Possession on the app for Shudder. And I love Shudder, so I've been watching a lot of stuff recently on Shudder. This is one of those things, and Possession is not a typical possession movie. There's a lot of oddities to it, a lot of different things to it. It being an art house experimental film, this should be right up my alley, and for the most part it kind of is, until we get to like the ending. But let me get to the actual story, though. Basically, Sam Neill plays a character who I think is some kind of communist spy, business spy, something like that. He reports to a group of people. He's been on a long business trip. He recently came back, and when he comes back, he and his wife have a discussion. They also happen to have a kid, by the way, a young boy, probably 8 years old, 7 years old, and their marriage has kind of fallen apart. But he didn't really realize that. He knew that there were some rough patches they had had, but he didn't really know how bad it had gotten. So Sam Neill's kind of dealing with some things. The wife claims that she's been unfaithful. He kind of admits that he might have been too, but she really is like straight up like, I'm in love with this other guy that I'm cheating on you with. I'm planning on leaving you. I want to get with him. I actually love him. And Sam Neill gets hit with a lot of different things. He's not a good guy, number one. I want you to know that. Number one, Sam Neill's character is not the good guy in this situation. He is just as bad as his wife. Let's start there. But number two, I root more for him than I do for her because of the things we find out that she's doing in the film, but he's still a bad guy, right? The film has arguably, a supernatural element to it, depending on whether we're looking at this as a straightforward, regular old mainstream movie with a very confusing, rough ending, or if we're looking at it as an experimental film. Again, it's very debatable on whether you want to call this film supernatural or allegorical or whatever you would like to look at it as. For me, it's so experimental and art housey, you have to kind of accept it as like a David Lynchian type of thing. It's a bizarre movie, a weird movie, a wild movie. A lot of it is focused on this wife leaving her husband, and kind of the things we find out about her, the mysterious things going around her, what she's doing, why she's doing certain things. Those motivations come to light. They're bizarre. There is a lot of screaming in this movie. It's a well-written film. I think the pacing is a little slow, but it's a good slow burn most of the time, I would say. But there's so much screaming. So much screaming. Sam Neill gives a great performance. The actress who plays the wife, she gives a great performance as well. Sometimes better than his. But there is so much arguing and fighting over the same things over and over again in the film. That gets kind of annoying. To me. For a 2-hour-long movie, that gets kind of annoying. A little drawn out, in my opinion. But the screaming is too much. There's a lot of that. Just moments where people break down and scream at the top of their lungs for like, we're talking 3-4 minutes at a time. And sometimes it's a continuous one-shot take. Which is, like, how do you scream for 3 and 4 minutes on camera and not lose your voice? I'm sure these actors and actresses did at some point, but still. I don't want to talk too much more about the plot. There is a supernatural element in there that is debatable, but that is horrific stuff. When you get to that portion of the film, that is truly horrific with some imagery that I've never seen anywhere else. Stuff that's truly unique. And to come out in the same year as things like My Bloody Valentine, Friday the 13th Part 2, this is a unique horror film. I'm a little surprised by how positive the reception seems to be on this movie. It's a good film, don't get me wrong. I like quite a bit of it. I love quite a bit of it. But it's just out there enough that I'm surprised people love this as it is. And again, when you look at IMDb, it's like a 7 out of 10 on some of the ratings. What the hell, why? It's a good flick, but it's not that good in my opinion. It's right at average, but has some above average elements to it throughout the entire film. But anyway, let's get more into the characters a little bit. Of course, I talked about our main two. The young boy's not in this that much. His performance is good for a child actor, but he's not really focused upon that much. There is a character in here who I believe is French. His name is Heinrich. And he is so out there. He is the most out there character I've seen in a movie in a long time. I'm currently watching a new Nicholas Winding Refn show. Not new, but newer to me. It's called Too Old to Die Young. It came out a couple of years ago, I believe. I'm currently watching that. There's a character who's very bizarre, involving a scene with a tiger, a plush tiger, and he snorts constantly. Every scene he's in, this dude snorts. Like he can't breathe well, like he's trying to like clear some mucus, that type of thing. That's a bizarre character, right? Like I'm used to seeing weird characters like that in movies like Nicholas Winding Refn stuff, or like in David Lynch stuff. Heinrich is a whole nother type of character. Like he's a whole handful, dude. The way he interacts with Sam Neill, that's bizarre. How Sam Neill suspects that Heinrich might be the boyfriend of his wife is interesting stuff. The investigations that Sam Neill gets into surrounding his wife and that whole craziness, this mystery, why she's being so weird, why she seems so different and out of character. She is almost demonic in a lot of ways. It's a very interesting movie focused around that element, but the characters surrounding that wife are so creepy and so weird and odd. I love it. It's a great element of the film, and again, that pacing being a slow burn really works for that part of this movie, I would say. Let's talk about the look of the film. It's a very British movie. It's a very European film, but without the neon. It's a very drab movie, a very dark movie in general. Not the view of it, but like the actual content, the tone, all of that. It's a very dark movie in total, and the look of it should match that. And a lot of the time it does. It's a very rainy movie. There's always rain happening in scenes. A lot of the buildings they film in are very abandoned looking. Some are kind of modern day apartment looking type stuff. That stuff is good. It's well shot. There's some scenes involving the supernatural elements I talked about that are pretty horrific. There is a tunnel scene in this film. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. This is one of the big ones that everybody talks about that's truly horrific. That tunnel scene, the way it's shot, is mostly a one shot for the whole thing for like 5 or 8 minutes. And it's very nice looking. Very horrific, but very nice looking. It's a masterfully shot film. Not a masterfully written film, but a masterfully shot film, in my opinion. The practical effects are fantastic. There is a particular scene involving some revelations around the wife. And every time we go back to her story in this movie, we see more and more of a certain thing. That practical effect is phenomenal. It's truly phenomenal, I think. It's some of the best I've ever seen in horror, ever. Does that make this movie amazing, though? I don't think so. That stuff is great. The practical effects truly are horrific, and they are things that you won't ever unsee. There are things that, even if you don't like this movie, or even if you love this movie, there are images and things that you will witness here that you have never seen and that you will never forget. I promise you that. If you're looking for that in a truly horrific art house type movie, Possession is for you. Easily. And I'm an art house experimental type of movie fan with, again, my interest in a lot of things. David Lynch, Nicholas Winding Refn, this should be up my alley, and for the most part it is. It's a good flick for the most part. The music is okay. Not a big fan of the music. It's fine. You know, it's okay. It's supposed to be kind of haunting, so a lot of the film doesn't have a lot of music to it. But it works for what the movie is. You know, does that make sense? I hope it does. I'm with this movie about 75% of the time. I was engaged the entire time through. There were moments that I kind of just got out of it because of how goofy it got, but the Heinrich character that I'm not really a fan of, he's a bit too much in my opinion. If they had kind of toned him down a little bit, it would have been better. But the film tries to have some humor here and there with Sam Neill's comments towards his wife and all the fights they have, or with the Heinrich character. There's a lot of humor in here, and it works for the most part. But I'm just not into this movie like a lot of people are. It's okay. It's okay, and I think it's for sure above average, but it's okay overall. And I think what really gets me is the ending of the film. I really don't think, again, looking at it as an actual movie, or as allegory, or anything that you look at that ending as, to me, it's not satisfying. Any direction we're looking at it from, any perspective we're looking at it from, I don't think it actually satisfies, in my personal opinion. It's a movie about divorce. It's a movie about a family falling apart. It's a movie about possibly possession. It's a movie about possibly just jealousy. It's a movie about cheating on your spouse constantly in both parts of the relationship, people doing that. It's tragic, plain and simple. And a lot of that really makes it onto screen, but I don't think the ending complements that, and that's my personal opinion on it. But overall, when it comes to the 1981 film Possession, I don't love it, like a lot of people do. I know a lot of people, if you're watching this review, you probably do love the film, or you're just some, random person who watches my channel that I talk to all the time, like Completionist, or like Stranger Grayson, or Franchise Horror Reviews, who is the same person as Completionist, or Spongy, or somebody. But for you folks out there who truly love this film, I would love a comment from you to really tell me what it was about this film that made you love it so much. I know it's a bizarre movie, but it has to have an audience out there for people to rate this as high online as they do, and for it to have the reputation it does. I'm kind of glad, though, I'm not the only one who feels the way I feel, but I want the film to get its credit. It's a well-made movie, for sure. That's undoubtedly true. It's a well-made movie, and I can appreciate that a lot about it. I'm just not 100% in for it. Anyway, if I had to rate Possession on a 5-star basis, I would give this about a 3 out of 5 stars for my personal taste. I know that seems kind of low, but again, remember, I don't think it hits a 4, but it is above average to me. It just doesn't land the way I think it should have. If it had a better ending, I think I would have given it way higher, like closer to a 5 out of 5. I just don't think it lands there for my personal taste, my personal opinion, but I could see myself watching this again in the future to see what would happen for things I could pick up on details and stuff throughout the film, because it's a very complex movie for what it is. Not to the extent of like Inception or like Tenet or anything like that. It's not like a Nolan type of movie where it's going to mess with your whole brain. You have to know all the ins and outs to really even understand the base story. It's not like that. It's just a great flick for what it is, I think. It's simple, but it's also complex for the simplicity that it has. I know that's crazy and hard to wrap your head around, but when you see the movie, if you haven't seen it, you'll understand when you do. Anyway, Possession, not a big fan. Kind of misses for me, but I think a lot of people out there seem to really like this, so I would recommend it to you if you like experimental horror, art house horror. It has some good things in it, some really good things in it. Overall, just not for me. Anyway, thank you all for watching. God bless you all. Put your thoughts and comments down below. I'd love to hear from you again, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether we agree or disagree. Love to hear all of that. Thank you for watching, guys. Again, God bless you. Goodbye.